that life should be fun.
I'm only, 18. I'm not starting my life now.
She needs to grow up now. It's time to grow up.
Larry Lane is suing his ex-tenant, collections agent Kay Thomas, for unpaid rent, stolen property, and legal fees. Larry says Kay and her family are professional squatters.
This is case number 419 on account of the matter of Lane versus Thomas. Vice been sworn in, judge, you may be seated. Folks have a seat.
Mr. Lane, Ms. Thomas was a tenant of yours.
Yes, that's correct.
And it is your claim that she owes you for rent, certain property that she took from the apartment or house that she had rented when she ultimately moved out. And that she also owes you for filing false charges against you in her application for a protective order. You claim that Ms. Thomas and her family are professional squatters.
Yes, I do.
Which means that they go into people's homes, they rent them, they pay rent for a while, and they stop paying. And since it takes very often 6 months to a year to get them out, they don't pay rent, and they go from place to place, and that's a scam.
It is a scam.
And you're prepared to demonstrate to me that Ms. Thomas and her family have a history of doing the same kind of thing to other landlords.
Yes, I do.
And I'd be interested to hear about that. In any event, when did you rent? Is it an apartment or a house?
It was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home, upper middle income with a
When?
pool. February, I rented her the home. She signed a lease on February 27th.
Of 2004?
On 2004, she moved in on March 15th, 2004.
Who moved in?
Valina Thomas, and the premises were leased to her and her daughter. In addition to her moving in, she moved her brother in.
No, just a second. Who signed the lease?
Valina Thomas and Thomas.
Is that your husband? Yes. How much did you rent, Mr. Lane?
I asked for first, last, and the security
How-
deposit $1,250. Your Honor, $1,250.
I'm going to ask the questions.
Yes, ma'am.
You're going to give me the answers. If I need for you to expand, you're going to do that for me. $1,250 a month.
$1,250 a month.
And they gave you first, last, and security.
That's correct.
Okay, so they paid for March, and it was a year lease?
The check for March, Your Honor, was
No, was it a
dishonored.
year lease?
It is a year lease, yes, Your Honor.
The check for March was what, sir?
The check for March was dishonored by the bank. She alleged that her girlfriend had given her a $569 check.
Okay, so the
But
check for March was bounced.
Yes, Your Honor.
Did she ever pay March rent?
She did, Your Honor.
Okay, when did she pay March rent?
She paid March rent prior to April 15th.
And she paid April's rent?
She did pay April's rent, Your Honor.
And what about May?
She did not pay May's, June's, or July's.
Shh. Did she and her husband and the rest of the people that she moved into the house, did they live there May, June, and July?
Yes, they did, Your Honor. They lived there through August.
Through August.
Well, actually, they had abandoned the property, and I lived out of state, and I repossessed the property with a writ of possession on July 29th.
I just want to know,
Yes, ma'am.
when was the last time they lived in the house?
I wouldn't know. I didn't come back to the property until August the 7th.
Okay, when was the last time you lived in the house, Ms. Thomas?
July 31st.
Fine, can I see your rent receipt for May?
Did not pay the rent from May till June. Did
Why?
not.
You lived there in May.
Yes, ma'am. The rent was due on the 15th of every month.
Right.
I paid April's rent from April 15th to May 15th.
Right.
We notified Mr. Lane that my husband's job was transferring. We notified Mr. Brown when we paid April's rent that my husband's job was transferring him to Sarasota, Florida, which is 2 hours away from where we were living. He said, just let me know the date when you're going to be moving. Told Mr. Lane called. He said, I'll tell you what. He says, you paid half of May's rent, and I will return your security deposit if you're out before June the 15th. However, when I asked for a letter stating the fact, everything changed. He sent me a 3-day notice to vacate. Then he sent me another 3-day notice from a realtor company.
So what?
A month later,
So what? Months later, you were supposed to be out. Why weren't you out in June?
because he didn't follow his agreement either.
Why weren't you out in June?
Because our house wasn't ready that we were moving to.
Then
And
why didn't you pay rent?
I told him we were moving. And he said that...
Just a second, I don't understand something. Just a minute, Miss Thomas. If what you're telling me is that you moved and that's why you didn't pay rent, that's fine. What you're telling me now is that you told him you were moving, but you didn't move because your house wasn't ready and you didn't pay rent. Just a second.
Okay.
Let's get to objective facts.
Okay.
Miss Thomas, who is this?
This is my daughter, Heather.
All right. Is she a witness?
Yes, she is.
Fine. Then, unfortunately, she has to stay here.
That's fine.
If you live in an apartment or a house that doesn't belong to you, pursuant to a lease, if you live there, you have to pay rent.
I agree.
I don't want to hear any baloney about why you didn't pay rent.
I never said I didn't know it. I owe him for May and June.
Oh, well, that's not what you're saying here.
I haven't...
Just a second. I don't see it here, but that's what you say, that you owe for May and June. Let me see. In June, we could no longer afford the premises. That's what you wrote in your answer. That's what you swore to. And also, we found out that my husband was being transferred. latter part of July. What does that have to do with May? And stop playing with your papers. So that has nothing to do with May and June's rent.
I agree. I mean, we owe May. We owe
Okay,
May and
let's
June.
move on. We informed the plaintiff that we would be moving, and Mr. Lane was not very happy. He said that if we paid half of May's rent, he would refund our deposit when we moved. However, the money we had given him when we moved in was enough to cover up our rent until July, so we weren't going to pay him anymore. You got a whole bunch of excuses here, and you can't seem to keep your story straight. You lived there in May, you lived there in June, you lived there in July, and you didn't pay rent. Nowhere in your answer do you say, well, I do owe him for May and June.
I've always said I owed him, even in the
Yeah,
court job.
would you do me a favor, please, Vern? Would you show this answer, the sworn answer that she signed to her, and ask her, maybe I missed it, I don't know how I scored and read it. Show me in your answer where you say you acknowledge that you owe him for 2 months' rent.
I never acknowledged that I owed him for 2 months' rent.
Until now. Oh,
I've-
fine, then we get it now. Now you owe him for 2 months' rent.
Well, I also acknowledged when we went to Brevard County Courthouse that I owed him for 2 months'
Just a
rent.
second, I'm not talking about any place else that you went when he tried to get you
And
with
without
that. I'm
tax
talking
papers.
about the small claims court, which is where you are. So you forgot to put that down in your answer that you owe him for 2 months' rent.
Okay.
Is that right? You forgot.
Yes,
Fine. You owe him for 2 months' rent. So
Yes,
your rent
ma'am.
was $1,250 times 2 is $2,500. So that you owe him. That you acknowledge you owe him. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. Ex-tenant Kay Thomas owes for 3 months' rent. Larry says Kay is a squatter.
Now, when did you start eviction proceedings against her?
I attempted to start eviction proceedings in May.
So you already knew that this was a lost cause with these people.
I didn't believe it was a lost cause, Your Honor.
Well, then why would you choose to evict them?
I put a 3-day notice on her door precautionarily.
Sir, they owe you $2,500 for the 2 months' rent.
What
Now,
about July, Your Honor?
shh, just a minute.
Okay.
Now, did you get first month's rent and last month's rent?
I did, Your Honor.
Just a second. Listen to me. The last month's rent would have been July. Is that right, Mr. Lane?
Yes, ma'am.
What about the security deposit?
Well, Your Honor, there was extensive damage to my home and legal fees,
How much were your legal fees?
$691.
Okay. And what kind of damage was done to the home?
But, Your Honor, the screens on all windows were damaged. All the blinds were damaged.
Do you have any photographs?
Yes, I do, Your
I'd
Honor.
like to see it.
I also have receipts for blinds.
How did these windows get broken?
Can I see those pictures? I haven't seen them.
Sure.
Thank you. Your Honor, I have pictures also. The day before we moved in and the day we moved out. Would you like to see those?
I would.
These are the 2 screens that he's claiming on the kitchen. That's the 31st. You can see that those are not broke. Mezzanine blind, kitchen. And the other one that we admitted to. These are 2 that we admitted to. As far as the blinds go. The dates are on them, Your Honor.
Okay. Okay, so I have broken blinds.
Can I clarify something really
Yeah.
quick? He said that me and my husband and my daughter moved into the house. I have 2 daughters and he met them both. He also came 2 days before he left for Bay City, Michigan. He came to my house, my last residency, unannounced, but he came.
You mean the new place?
The old place. Prior to moving to his residency, I lived in Cocoa Beach, and he came to my residency 2 days before I signed the lease with him.
Yeah.
He's talking about me moving my brother and my sister-in-law in. He met them. He knew them. He knew they were going to be staying there with us for a month or so until they found their own place.
Mr. Lane,
Yes, ma'am.
defendant acknowledges at this juncture that she owes you 2 months' rent. I would take that and be happy.
What about the furniture she stole?
Now let's get to the furniture.
All right.
Show me pictures of the furniture.
I can't. I can only show you receipts, Your Honor, because...
What furniture did you take, Miss Thomas? You indicate that you took some stuff from the house.
I didn't take anything. I sold it.
You sold it.
Yes, ma'am. I have receipts to that, where I sold it to and how much I sold it for.
Let me see.
The last 2 pages.
Miss Thomas, why would you sell property that didn't belong to you?
I sold the dining room set and the bedroom set.
Why would you sell property that didn't
It was
belong to you?
we had an agreement in the lease for me to purchase it.
You mean you purchased it? Did you purchase it?
No, we did not pay anything for it. No, sir. No, ma'am.
Okay. So you had a provision in the lease if you wanted to purchase it, but you didn't purchase it, and yet you sold it.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, you can't do that.
I understand that. I did it out of anger because of what he done. He tried to have my electricity cut off.
Your Honor, I have a subpoena from Florida Power and Light showing that I didn't turn the power off.
tried.
Not only had she given them a false security number to get her power, she bounced checks on them, and that the power was turned off. And here it is, Your Honor,
Can I see it, please?
along with the subpoena.
Fine.
She also gave them a false address where she was moving to send the final bill. I corrected it for Florida Power and Light so they can collect from this deadbeat.
You owe money?
Yes, I'm paying them $75 a month. Yes, ma'am.
For money that you owe them?
Yes, ma'am.
Well,
I
you
made
gotta
rent.
pay your bills, madam. If you don't pay your bills, bad things happen. They turn off your lights, they turn off your
Ma'am,
water, they
my
turn off
lights
your
were turned-
electricity. That's what happens when you don't pay your bills. Listen, you can't sell property that doesn't belong to you.
understand that.
You didn't pay your electric bill. That's why you're paying $75 to make up what you owe them.
Your Honor, her lights were turned off.
How did you say that? How much is this stuff worth, sir? Dining room table with a hutch, a wicker bedroom set,
King-size bed,
king-size bed.
armoire.
How much did she agree to pay in the lease for the things that she sold?
She was going to pay $50 a month, but never consummated that.
Just Mr. Lane.
She was going to pay
What-
$50 a month and the balance on conclusion of the lease.
Oh,
The lease agreement
$50
shows
a month
that. Paragraph 22,
times
page
12 is $600.
8. Yes, Your Honor.
And a balance upon termination of the lease. What was the furniture sold for,
The
Mr. Lane?
furniture was sold for $1,250
$1,250 in total.
total.
Is
Yes,
that
Your
right?
Honor. Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
That's correct.
Then that's what you owe him.
I understand that. Never said I didn't know him for it.
Yes, you did. Show her the answer. She said the stuff he left in the house was a bunch of junk.
I was referring to
Just a second.
the refrigerator.
Show me in here where
It's
you
not in there.
acknowledge that you owe him money for the furniture that you sold.
It's not in there, ma'am.
Right, it's not in there.
I was
Now,
referring to
Mr.
the
Lane,
refrigerator.
Mr. Lane, I would like you to give me whatever proof you have that the Thomas family are squatters and scammers. So far, I would tend to agree with you.
Your Honor, I did a background investigation, and I should have done this prior to it, but my grandson was in a hospital. This shows that she was evicted. This is a background investigation from the internet that shows 6 bad checks and cable fraud.
Anything else?
Yes, I do. She currently is in Bradenton, Florida, in a diversion program for first-time offenders for bad checks. And I don't know about anything else, Your Honor. I just knew
Is that all
this-
correct? Are you
Other
currently-
bad checks. Yeah, a bad check. Yes, ma'am. It was the first time offender where I wrote a bad check. Yes, ma'am.
It was the first time you got caught.
No. No,
It was the first time you got caught.
Your Honor, this
I
account,
don't understand you, Miss Thomas. I don't understand why you believe. How old are you?
19.
Ma'am.
Well, you know, she's not a baby, so she can be here.
Your Honor, this
Listen.
this account was written on a closed account, which she alleged somebody had given her a check.
You already gave him a bad check.
May I see
Come on.
that
Closed
account?
account.
May I see that account, please? Yes, ma'am. And I took care of it. As soon as he told me that it had not been paid, I gave him the money. Took care of it. Took it out of the
I
account.
see it.
So
Your
it
Honor,
wasn't
she
that
told me that the check had bounced and yes, ma'am.
Mr. Lane,
Yes,
how long
ma'am.
have you been a landlord?
This was the first time I rented a piece of property, and I must have had stupid written right across my forehead.
That's true.
I understand. Your Honor, I have one other thing I'd like to say briefly.
Go ahead.
Your Honor, there was property in my garage. When I reported my furniture missing to the police, they said it was a civil matter. They couldn't do anything. But the property that I had in my garage was a side-by-side refrigerator, a Craftsman lawnmower, and a power edger. She disposed of that equipment. I went back down to the police department. They sent me out to her house to inspect again to see if the property was moved indoors or in the backyard. And as I tried to go in, she had me arrested for battery.
he was not arrested, Your Honor. He was never charged.
She
I
filed charges.
have
Did you get your refrigerator back?
No. And the other
Get your-
landlord,
You didn't get it back. Did you get anything back that was in the garage?
no, I didn't get anything back.
Where's
Not
the
even the
stuff?
keys to the house.
Where's the stuff? I'm not talking about the keys. Where's the stuff?
Can I explain what led up to that?
I just asked you where the stuff is.
It's gone.
It's
Mr.
gone.
Brown.
It went to the refrigerator fairy. Where did it go?
We got ready. A junk guy got it because it was no good. The gasket on it was broke. It wasn't keeping the air in. It was leaking water. He left it. He did not want it.
When did you get rid of it?
July the 8th.
Well, if it was bothering you, why didn't you get rid of it when you first moved in?
We were in the process of cleaning out the house, getting everything done. We had talked to Mr. Brown. He said it was given to you, whatever. Mr. Lane didn't want it. Do whatever you wanted to do with it.
Did you say that to her?
We
Of
even
course
cleaned
not.
it out.
Of course not. Well, what you're supposed to do is,
also-
I'm speaking. What you're supposed to do is stop making excuses.
I'm not making excuses.
Well,
Your
you did.
Honor.
You made excuses. You made excuses to
But
me.
he's saying I destroyed his house. He inspected the house on
I'm
July
not talking about
21st.
the inspection of the house. I'm talking about several things. I'm talking about the rent that you owed him
I agree.
for $2,500.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm talking about the furniture that you agreed to buy, which you didn't buy, which you sold.
Yes, ma'am.
So you owe him $1,250. I'm talking about the merchandise that was in the garage that you disposed of the same month that you moved out. The same month that you moved out. You didn't say to me, listen, he had all this junk in the garage and I was paying for the garage, so when we moved in, I got some junk guy to come over and get rid of it. You disposed of it the same month that you were moving. Miss Thomas, you did the wrong thing. And what you're supposed to do, put that down. What you're supposed to do when you do the wrong thing, especially if you have a child here, is you're supposed to say, I did the wrong thing.
I did. I mean, I did that.
Well, you didn't admit it to me in the answer. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $5,000. That's all. Bye-bye.
What regards to the previous two landlords, she also squatted on them and sold their property, including a refrigerator as well. I would advise any landlord to look at property research records and make sure that they're talking to the exact reference, because she gave me false references in this case. I started to walk into the house to inspect it. She went like this in the doorway. My belly touched her belly, and next thing I know, I've got an officer wanting to arrest me for assault. If you're going to be a landlord and you haven't done it before, hire a property management firm. I am not a property manager. My office manager of the insurance agency is a great office manager, but he's not a property manager either. They know how to evict them, they know how to detect them, and they know how to background check them. I'm glad that I was able to come to Judge Judy, because I know she's the only woman in this world that would be able to give these squatters the tongue lashing that they need.
This is the matter of Sloan versus Crawford. Step forward.
20-year-old Ian Sloan is suing his friend's mother, Nancy Crawford, for an unpaid loan to pay storage unit fees.
Mr. Sloan,